Hello everybody, this is TJ with Netpicks.com. Hope everyone's enjoying their Memorial Day weekend. I wanted to record a brief video to introduce the brand new Spotlight SubZero trading strategy. It's not even really a full strategy, it's just a setup, but it's so dynamic that it has become its own strategy. This is not meant to replace the great Spotlight Power Trader by any means. It's just going to give us more opportunity using various Spotlight concepts in a different way. When I was first creating the Spotlight Power Trader, there were a number of setups that were fantastic, and what I learned by using the strategy a lot was that some of the setups needed to just kind of be left alone. They had their own cadence, their own rhythm in the market, and would often come into conflict with other setups that were also good, but demanded their own cadence and rhythm. And I even encountered times when a long trade and a short trade would both occur, and both trades would have won if they were just left alone. I know it's hard to imagine that, but it's actually quite common when you have different types of setups that require different parameters to succeed. And by stripping out some of those setups and focusing in on the core group of setups that became the Spotlight Power Trader, the strategy itself just became perfect. It was the best thing I'd ever created, and it's what I pretty much exclusively use, except for some of the other Spotlight setups that are separate and are not part of the Spotlight Power Trader. And one of those separate setups that I stripped out at the beginning is called SubZero. SubZero is very unique because it's a setup that happens randomly on a variety of charts, and when it does happen, it has a very high chance of succeeding. Basically, it's become a unique trade of opportunity. It's a departure from how we normally trade. With the Spotlight Power Trader, we use formal trade plans with tested start times, stop times, goals each day that we call the power of quitting, and there are a variety of formulas that we can use for that. But ultimately, the goal is to quit with a positive result a majority of the time while controlling our drawdown with minimal and efficient trading. And what I've learned with SubZero is that we could really add a lot more juice to our trading. We could add more profit potential and still stay on point with that overall philosophy, because the trade plan for SubZero is the trade. It doesn't matter when you take it, in other words. It works in the pre-market, it works in after hours, it works very well just about any time it sets up. No, it doesn't win 100% of the time. It doesn't need to. It wins very often and enough of the time to where you could still use it to increase your profit. You can use it as a random trade of opportunity if you're unable to trade every day for whatever reason, or perhaps your trade plan, one of the sessions that it didn't end positive, you could use SubZero to juice it up and give you a high chance of getting positive. Or maybe you had a dentist appointment and you wanted to come home later in the morning or even in the afternoon and look for a trade. SubZero fits the bill because it is a unique single trade of opportunity. The way it works is very simple to understand. Markets trend and markets consolidate. Markets go through slow periods and then they go through great periods of energy. What SubZero attempts to do is put you in the market just in front of the energy, just in front of coming out of a consolidation, or basically getting on board when the market is out of balance and the buyers are in control or the sellers are in control. You either get to take one trade and that's it, or if that trade doesn't work, you could take one more trade in the opposite direction. That's it. It's a 1 or 2 trade strategy, trade plan, whatever you want to call it, trade of opportunity, and that's how we use it. All right, and it's really simple. This average strength indicator here, the green line on this very unusual histogram, which is often misunderstood, especially by those who don't have Spotlight. When the green line gets below -20, we start looking for setups. So that's your SubZero. And it's really quite simple. Let me turn it on and I'll show you. By the way, we're looking at the NQ, the NASDAQ E-mini, during Memorial Day Monday at a time when no one should be trading. But, you know, there are other countries that don't celebrate Memorial Day and the market is trading. And SubZero, you'll see, just really doesn't care. Let me turn it on and I'll show you. All right, and you can see how slow the market is because just look at this last setup right here. That's at 8:38. That's literally 8 minutes after the U.S. markets would have opened, and there's been hardly any bars. The volume's very low, and you can see it's, you know, nearly noon already, and this is Central Time. The NQ being traded out of Chicago. The one setup that occurred was this long trade during market hours, and you could see it hitting all its targets. There was a trade back here at 4:45 a.m. and it was able to get to its money management and was a break-even trade before it turned around. And then even earlier, there was this trade here at 7:27. It got short and didn't quite get far enough. But remember, you could take one trade in the opposite direction and notice that the entry is still right at the other entry. You know, maybe with adjusting a little bit, you might have lost a tick or two, maybe 3 or 4 even, but a very small loss. And then an easy winner during a day when you wouldn't even want to trade. But that's the whole point about SubZero. It's a unique trade of opportunity. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't show you the great tool set that comes with Spotlight Power Trader in general. This is a Spotlight strategy and setup. The SubZero, we're calling it a new setup in the family of Spotlight setups, Spotlight Power Trader setups. So let's turn on the Spotlight. So as you can see in typical Spotlight fashion, when you're in a long trade, the bars are green. When you're in a short trade, the bars are red. And when you're flat, the bars are gray. Let's take a look at some other examples. I'm just going to go back to the Friday leading into the 3-day weekend. It's typically a challenging day to trade, so why not show off SubZero? Here's a trade set up on the ES, and you'll see that this is almost 2.5 hours before the market starts. So pre-market and a beautiful trade. Now, I actually took an ES trade that got me quitting for the session. I had 3 trades going at the same time. You could trade right from the chart. I'll even, later in this video, I'm going to show you how we do that. I have an example I'm going to put in this video so you'll get to see how I trade this live. So here we are during market hours and the first trade gets to money management. If you have a successful trade, a trade that gets to money management, that itty bitty little dot there that moves the stop up to break even, then it's considered a successful trade and you no longer can take a trade in the opposite direction if the first trade were to fail, because it didn't fail. It got to break even at least. And then you have to just wait for a new SubZero setup after that, which happens. So that was the only trade of the sequence. It did come down and hit money management and stop out for a break-even trade. Not quite getting to target 1. It went 90% of the way. That's okay. I had a tight money management. We could certainly loosen the money management rules, which you could see would have been a perfect trade. But I just stick to the spirit of the Spotlight, which is to try to get to a break-even position as aggressively as possible while giving the trade the room it needs to develop. In this case, the trade needed a little more room to develop, but you know, nothing's perfect. I'll just wait for the next setup. And the next setup is actually what had me quitting, because when this setup occurred, and remember, it was a very slow Friday before a 3-day weekend, I also had trades going in the NQ and the Russell E-mini. Maybe it was crude oil, I forget. Anyway, you could see that it got short here. And it's got the great accurate targets that Spotlight comes with, just pushing through target 2. Of course, you want to see it pushing through targets with the ES to assure getting filled. But that was a beautiful trade. That was 17 ticks at target 2. You could take profit at target 1, target 2, target 3, target 4, and trail. And with the ES, it's always a good idea to trade with multiple positions. And you could see the profit potential in here with $212 to target 2, $137 target 1. And if you're trading multiple contracts, you can see in just a very efficient trade how much can be made. On the Russell E-mini, I grabbed these 3 trades. The first trade not quite getting far enough, so flipping over to short. Remember, you could take one trade in the opposite direction. Notice that the stop on the first trade would have been down here, but because SubZero recognized the false breakout and the possibility of a large move in the opposite direction, it quickly got out of that trade and into the new trade, cutting the risk on that trade by half. And then, of course, getting into the winning trade, much like that ES getting past target 2, 23 ticks, 2.3 points to target 2 at $115 per contract, $5 a tick. And then later in the morning, actually this was right before noon, a perfect trade hitting all 4 of its targets. And this is all leading into the 3-day weekend. A couple nice trades I was involved with crude oil getting short here. And you could see some nice trades. That's 26 cents to target 3, 260 bucks just to target 3, 190 bucks to target 2. And then the long trade, both these trades successful, good for $1,660, 16 ticks and 22 ticks and 28 ticks, $280 to target 4. And that you know, as you grow your account, you can certainly scale out at each of the targets, or targets 2 through 4 are typically going to be your best results. And then you could even trail and catch some home run trades. Here it is on gold futures. Again, Friday leading into Memorial Day. This was in the pre-market, 4:30 in the morning, a break-even trade, and then coming back at 10 minutes after the U.S. markets. Actually, this is 8:40 New York time, so it's still before the U.S. markets open, but a good time to be trading gold. And look at the perfect target. I mean, target 4 was good for $28. That's $280 per contract. And you could see the $160, $220, $280 if you're trading all 3 of those targets, 2, 3, and 4. The next trade that came after was another long trade, which almost got to target 2. Small trade and stopping out at money management. Again, a tight money management, but that's okay. An interesting look at the last sequence. Let's see. Oh, this is actually Memorial Day, Monday also. You could see in the pre-market here a long trade that then quickly gets short, cutting the loss in half and then getting into a really nice short trade. And that was Sunday, early Monday morning before 3 a.m. So those in Europe, right when the markets open, could have enjoyed this. And then, of course, Friday morning, a short trade, which almost got to target 2, not quite. Stopped out with a partial profit, then got long, and that one was a break-even trade. And then the next trade after that came right there, and that one had to flip to short, so it cut the loss. Wasn't a full loss, definitely cut it short. The full loss would have been 31 ticks, so we'll call it maybe 27 or 28 ticks, and then it was able to get to 35 ticks to target 2. So that just this sequence here ends up being positive, and that's what you're going to see with SubZero quite often. Here's a random look at DAX futures, midday, a 5-point momentum bar, and you can see the first trade here getting to target 2 perfectly, and there's another trade here with a nice short. DAX futures works the same. It really doesn't matter. It loves all kinds of charts. You can trade it on currency futures and, of course, Forex. Let's take a look at that. Just a random look going back to Friday. You could see the short trade here. This is during the session, 5 a.m. It's between the European and U.S. session, what we call the bridge session. Not a time you would normally trade, but with SubZero you can. Here it gets short, hitting all its targets. It's flat. Here it gets short, just misses money management, but then flips to long for, again, a very small loss, cutting that risk that was up here down quite a bit and getting on the winning trade, which hit the perfect target 3. And these are the kind of sequences that we find with SubZero all the time. On Friday, the euro-yen, right when the U.S. session trade plan starts at 8:30, got into this SubZero trade here, which almost got to target 4. It was a small little trade. Just clicking backwards from here to see how it might have done during the European session, you could see a SubZero trade setting up way back here at 3:56 in the morning. That's European time. Actually, 2 in a row, a nice short trade. And that one just barely missed its money management. Real small trade, but it literally hit the 11 pips right here. But the way the calculator's set up, it didn't get to that tiny dot. So while that was a small winner, the next trade was also a nice winner. Now here's a completely different look. This is an NQ 610 tick chart, and this is Friday during the European session, the off hours. Actually, it's 6 in the morning. You can see how quiet it is prior to that. Again, SubZero doesn't really care. It gets to break even, doesn't quite get to target 1 before stopping out with money management. And then the next setup after that, totally different look and feel. And you'll see how it stays flat. I mean, it's a trade of opportunity waiting for the SubZero setup. Gets a long trade here. This is at 9:16 during the US session. And it ultimately comes up and hits its money management and then stops out for just a few ticks. But then you'll get another setup a little bit later, a nice long trade here, and that one comes up and hits a perfect target 3. And you can just see how dependable these setups are, which is the point of this video. If you had tried Spotlight Power Trader and had a hard time staying with the formal trade plan concept, here's a chance to use the great Spotlight using the trade of opportunity, the high percentage trade of opportunity called SubZero. To end this video, I'm going to show you how I trade it from the chart live. I took a trade a few days ago. I recorded it, trading a trade with the Dowie Mini. Sometimes I'll have a number of trades going at the same time, and you could practice that. It's really not that hard when you learn how to trade from the chart directly. To finish this video with that example, of course, if you have any questions about SubZero, please contact us, info@netpicks.com. All right, good morning, everybody. I have a possible SubZero trade setting up on the Dowie Mini this morning, and I thought I would just throw the recorder on and record the next trade with SubZero. It's a pretty simple system to trade. We're looking at this green line crossing below the -20 level. That's our SubZero level. And you can see it coming. So there's one there. I'll make a 1-tick adjustment to get above that little swing level.
Order filled.
Go to target 3 and target 2. I'm in the trade. Move the stop down. With SubZero, I could take one trade. I may have to take another trade in the opposite direction. That's it. It's either 1 or 2 trades per setup. You can see earlier there was a really great SubZero trade. This was last night during the Globex off-hours session. This is a Spotlight Power Trader setup using the SubZero approach. My first objective is to get to this little dot right here. I'm going to put a line over it. If I get to this level here, I will move my stop up and lock in 1 tick to cover my costs and eliminate the risk. Markets just opened a few minutes ago, almost at the money management level. There it is. You see how the stop moved up? So now I just grab my stop, and it's working below the 50-cent level, but I'm going to come in. It's gone far enough where I want to take my risk off the trade. So I'm going up a little bit more because I did make a 2-tick adjustment, and the price has gone far enough so that I could make sure that I'm covering my costs. This is actually right where I got in. I could go 1 tick higher. I think I will. There. That covers my costs. And there it is, hitting target 2. And for some reason I didn't get filled. Let's see if it can go back up again. Exit out of one position. Oh, not getting filled here.
Order
there
filled.
It is. So I just got filled, just had to go through it. Now I'm coming up to target 3, and I'm 1 tick shy
Order
of target
filled.
3, and there it is. That's my whole trade. I'm not trailing. I just took a target 2 and a target 3 winner. If you could trade, or if you want to trade with more positions, you can. You can certainly put on more contracts and peel off at each one of these targets if you'd like. Even target 1 is quite profitable, but target 2 is maybe the most profitable over a lot of trades. But on any given day, you could hit a target 3, a target 4. You could trail. They're all pretty close as far as your average profit. But it just depends, you know, if you like multiple positions, you could really hit the home run out of the park and pick up those big outlier trades when you hit a runner. So look at how target 3 was hit perfectly, and now it's coming off. And the trailer is still down here, but it's getting ready to move up. So the trailer moved up to here now. So if you were still in the trade, if you're trailing this trade can go for a while. So we'll just let this run and see how long it takes for this trade to finish, and you can kind of envision yourself using this strategy. SubZero is very unique. It's one of the new setups in the Spotlight Power Trader family of trades. With Spotlight, we use formalized trade plans where we have a start time, a stop time, certain amount of trades, a certain goal that we hit. Usually it's a target 2 winner. That's explained how we do that a little more thoroughly in the training. What makes SubZero different is the trade itself is the trade plan. You don't really have a start time. You could wait till the market's open, for example. But when a SubZero trade sets up, even in the after hours or late in the day or some random time, the odds are always very good. It's an excellent setup. This trade is moving along nicely. You can see the trailer tracking the balance line. The balance line is a really great indicator. It drives the strategy. It tells us the balance point between buyers and sellers, and we're hiding our stop right behind it, so it makes for an excellent moving support and resistance level for us. Almost getting to target 4 here, and the stop pushing higher. With every bar that closes above the balance line, the stop will push and track that balance line. By the way, on the trade that you just saw me get filled at target 2 and target 3, target 2 you could see made 32 points. There it is hitting target 4. That would have been 56 points. So I made 32 points and I made 44 points per position. So these are the numbers if I didn't make a 2-tick adjustment. Remember, I made a 2-tick adjustment so you could take off $10. So I made $150 to target 2 and $210 to target 3. And now you can see the price starting to move past target 4. And this could turn into one of those home run trades, hitting all 4 targets and maybe continuing higher. So having a trailer, certainly not a bad idea. If you just do your approach consistently, you're going to get really great results. I could have taken everything off at target 2 if I wanted, but I do like to trade with multiple targets, and I will often come in and actually scale out at target 2, target 3, target 4, and trail. A lot just depends on what I have to do that day, or if I want to get out of the market quickly. Today is Friday. I've got plans for later. Other things I have to do. So getting out at target 2 and target 3, and you can see that perfect target right there, literally took me from 8:34 to 8:38, 4 minutes. Obviously trading to the bigger targets and trailing is a greater investment of time because we're already now nearly 15 minutes into the trade. So 4 minutes versus 15 minutes. That's okay. Still not a lot to ask. And this trade can go on. We'll see how long it lasts. The stop is moved up to nearly where target 3 is. So it definitely needs to get higher. And there, see, it stopped out. So this trade is over. So it gives you an idea how this works. Pretty straightforward. The entire trade is planned and structured from start to finish. You know where your entry is. You can easily see the small little price action indicators, the spike up, possible near-time resistance. Instead of getting in 1 tick below it, just get in 1 tick above it. I'm willing to give up a couple ticks. We call that an insurance policy. And just in case it went, just barely got to that same level and went down, that could happen. I'd avoid it, right? But to push through, that little extra confirmation, that helps. And then it's really straightforward. First objective, tiny little dot. That's where you move your stop up and either nearly eliminate your risk, maybe work around the 50-cent level, or completely eliminate your risk. You can make those decisions depending on the size of the trade. The trade is being adjusted to market conditions. So some trades will be bigger than others. Some trades will be small. Some trades will be large. But they're all, within this average size. This is an average size trade. So risking 32 points, $5 a point. So this trade had $160 risk. It was a 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio to target 2. I'm fine with that if it's winning at a high percentage. I'm even fine with a smaller risk-reward ratio if it's winning at a high percentage like this. But you can make up for it on the higher targets. Target 3 was a nearly 1.4 to 1. Target 4 was near 1 3/4 to 1. These are really nice risk-reward ratios when you couple them with high win rates like you get with SubZero. Is a very steady and reliable setup. And of course, a trailer can keep going, and that could really add to your overall risk-reward profile over time. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. live trade demo of Spotlight SubZero. This is TJ with Netpicks.com and the Spotlight Power Trader.